ready for story time? Daddy's got this new story. What is it?
How Fletcher Was Hatched by Wendy and Harry Devlin.
There's Cream over there watching too. Okay, Delilah. Come for story time. This was a story from when I was a little girl.
Alexandria sat in the sunlight watching a chick hatch from an egg. Peep! And it was out of its shell. Fletcher, she called to her dog, look at this dear chick. It's so tiny. It's so yellow. It's so fluffy. It's so stupid, growled Fletcher to himself. He gave Alexandria a hopeless look and walked over to his water dish. It was empty. Another thing he hadn't had his ears scratched in days. No one wants a first-rate hound dog around here, he thought to himself. She's forgotten me. Fletcher raised his head and howled miserably. Oh! Oh!
Couldn't think of that.
Quiet, Noisy. The chicks are sleeping. Alexandria turned her back on Fletcher. With a wounded look, Fletcher shuffled mournfully away towards the park at the edge of town. At the far end of the park was a pond where Fletcher's faithful friends, Beaver and Otter, lived. Otter was splashing. Beaver was at the water's edge when Fletcher shuffled up. The animals weren't long in noticing Fletcher's sadness. Fletcher saw to that with a few deep moans and a few very loud sniffles. Alarmed, they gathered close to hear his tale. She's forgotten me, said Fletcher. She loves chickens. Cute, fluffy, peeping, stupid chickens. Beaver and Otter, who were wild, free animals, didn't really understand Fletcher's deep attachment to his mistress. But they understood that Fletcher was terribly unhappy. I'm terribly unhappy, said Fletcher. Maybe if you were fluffy and yellow, Otter said doubtfully. Could you peep a little, said Beaver. If only you could hatch once in a while, said Otter. That's it, said Beaver, slapping his tail. We'll have you hatch. It'll be a new beginning. Me hatch, said Fletcher. But Beaver and Otter paid little attention to Fletcher. They were soon in a warm discussion about how to make an egg large enough to hold a hound dog. With some misgivings, Fletcher promised to do his part and act like a chicken. They built an egg around Fletcher. They worked all day in the sun with reeds and clay and river grasses. Otter sometimes stopped to tickle Fletcher's nose with a cornflower, but Beaver, who was the master builder, worked steadily, plastering pink clay evenly all over the reed network. With his friends working so tirelessly, Fletcher couldn't complain, even when wet lumps of clay dropped on his head. Flop! They're making him an egg. At last it was finished. Beaver had smooth...
Don't you want to listen? Here, come on. Delilah's trying to sneak away.
Come here, Delilah.
I guess Cream will listen then.
At last it was finished. Beaver had smoothed the clay over the surface with such artistry that there could be little doubt this was a great pink, pearly object was an egg that would have been a joy to any mother bird's heart. He speckled it in honor of Fletcher's own brown spots. 2 holes were left in the egg so that Fletcher would be fed water and a strawberry or two. Beaver and Otter and Fletcher were tired. It had been a long day's work. Shadows grew deeper and lengthened in the blue of the night. And when the pumpkin-colored moon appeared on the rim of the pond, Beaver and Otter, nestling close to their great egg, lay deep in sleep.
We'd worked so hard all day.
Inside the egg, feeling quite homesick, Fletcher wondered if Alexandria was thinking of him. Back at the farmhouse, Alexandria lay awake under her red quilt. Tears fell on her pillow. How could she sleep with Fletcher gone, perhaps never to return? The clock struck 12 before she finally went off to sleep. Oh, Alexandria cried herself to sleep, Cream. At last it was morning. At the pond, while the white surface of the water was broken by jumping frogs and leaping minnows, Beaver and Otter awoke and ambled down to the water's edge for a quick dip and breakfast. They didn't forget a few strawberries, for Fletcher had been discovering that inside the egg is the most unsatisfactory place to yawn and stretch. Let's go, commanded Beaver. Now the animals started to get the last part of their plan. Very carefully, they pushed and they shoved and they rolled that egg until they reached a large clump of grass by the path that led to Alexandria's school. Inside the egg, Fletcher felt a bit bruised and very confused.
Getting busy.
He rolled it over and over again. The town began to wake up slowly, and the sounds of traffic drove Beaver and Otter back to the pond and the tall grasses. They shouted "Goodbye, good luck" to Fletch, but remember, no barking, just peeping. Peep, growled Fletcher, and then he lay quiet. It was the custodian on the way to open the school who first discovered the amazing egg. He's like, boing! His glasses just popped right off of his head. Wah!
What do you think of that, Cream?
He shouted to some nearby children, "It's an egg! It's the biggest one in the world! Call the science teacher!" Soon a crowd of children gathered around. Their eyes were filled with wonder. "Where is its mother?" said little Tommy. "Its mother would have been as large as a house," said round-eyed Gabby, shaking her blonde hair. "Bigger," said Robert. The school teacher's over here wiping off his brow because he's just so impressed by this. The science teacher scurried up to the crowd with his friend Professor Schneitzer from the university. The crowd became larger, and members of the school band, on their way to an early practice, gathered close. The science teacher stood up on a park bench and shouted, "Don't touch it! It looks like it's a flat-billed, prehistoric scratch and fratch, a priceless find." A respectful hush fell upon the crowd. "Or perhaps it's the web-footed, pickle-faced dinoflyer," said the professor from the university. Wow, what an impressive name.
He's listening.
Fletcher huddled inside the egg, quivering with excitement as he waited for Alexandria. Suddenly, he heard her name. The children were telling her about the egg. Fletcher now began to get ready for the big moment, but Alexandria was making funny noises. Alexandria was crying. She told them all she didn't want to see some stupid old egg. She was looking for lost Fletcher. In fact, the only thing in the world that she wanted was Fletcher. Boom! And there was Fletcher. Knew it was time to hatch. He pushed and he stretched, and rising howl, he fairly exploded out of the egg. Roar! The crowd screamed and moved back. Fletcher shook himself and the mud flew. Feeling that something was expected of him, he turned to Alexandra and said, "Peep!" He croaked.
Is that the right noise for a doggy to make?
Would you say peep? Cream wouldn't say a peep. Laughing and crying, Alexandria hugged him. The two men of science looked at their shoes and felt a little foolish. "Strike up the band," said the principal, hoping that everybody had forgotten about his guess that the mother of the egg was a giant hen from Mars. The band played "Hurrah" for the red, white, and blue. The principal, feeling called on to bring the occasion to a close, faced the audience. He wiped his face with his handkerchief. "Only in America," he announced with a great feeling, "could a hound dog hatch." This seemed to please everyone. With so much clapping and whistling, the crowd began to fall away. Alexandria skipped along with Fletcher. Fletcher panted happily. Sometimes Alexandria would stop to hug her dog. And Fletcher thought to himself, "You don't have to hatch to be loved. You don't have to be yellow and peep. You can be a great hound dog with brown spots and be the most important creature in a little girl's life." Oh, he's dancing along so proudly.
Isn't that sweet? They've already creamed. They're falling asleep.
And he gave himself a good shake, and the last bit of dried mud on his back went flying. The end.
There was his friends that helped him.
Couldn't have done it without these two friends. How Fletcher was hatched.
Nice story. Who wrote that?
Wendy and Harry Devlin.
Wow, that's a good one to check out at the library then, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
If you can find it. It's from a long time ago. And there's our little kitties that have gone to sleep. Good night.